Okay, what do I even call this thing? The G1 8-bit classic, I guess. We'll go with that. It's kind of a clone of a clone. It's kind of a clone of a Bitboy. Bitboy is a little kind of Nintendo on a chip in the shape of a Game Boy thing that's been on the market for a few years now. The latest version of it has a micro SD card slot, which you can load your own ROMs onto. It'll play NES, Game Boy, and Game Boy Color. This, on the other hand, definitely does not have a micro SD card slot, and it's only preloaded with NES games, which is fine. It's cheap. We gotta get that out of the way. This thing is really cheap. I think it's like $25. The Bitboy is like $60. Granted, the Bitboy is a much higher quality system. It's got an IPS panel. This one definitely does not. Again, the buttons feel nicer, and obviously you can load your own ROMs on it. For $25, do I recommend this thing? Maybe. Realistically, get the Bitboy. Honestly, if you want something like this, get the Bitboy. $60, it's well worth it. I almost see this thing as like a novelty gift. I mean, for $25, if you just need like a stocking stuffer for someone, then go for it. Buy it for somebody as kind of a novelty gift. They're not going to take it too seriously, but it was $25. And that's how I ended up with this one. My wife got this one for Christmas, along with a bunch of other stuff, obviously. And I immediately looked at it and went, wow, what is this thing? It looks cheap. But of course, I looked it up and realized, well, it is cheap. It goes for about $25. So honestly, what do you expect? Obviously, it looks like a little Game Boy. It's got A and B and then turbos, basically. It's got an extra button for resetting it. On the top is just the power button, a micro USB port for charging the included lithium-ion battery, and a 2.5 inch, how about millimeter, 2.5 millimeter jack that does the included composite AV mono AV cable there. If you want to hook this thing up to a TV, you probably don't. Honestly, it defeats the purpose, and it kind of looks like garbage, as you would expect. Anyways, turn this thing on. The screen is crap in terms of the color accuracy and viewing angles, but it is surprisingly decent in terms of the scaling. I mean, obviously it's slightly stretched. Turn this light off. Obviously it's slightly stretched out, but the scaling is, I would say, at least it looks like it's integer scaling. Unlike the Bitboy when you play Game Boy games on it, for example. So the scaling looks decent. The games run and look decent. Again, it's in many cases the colors are sort of off. In some cases, obviously, the sound is kind of off. It's your typical cheap Nintendo on a chip fare. And I'm going to try and find a game, and I'll turn the volume up. That's the volume knob. Basically the only knob on it. There's no brightness adjustment, I don't believe. The music in the menu is, I believe, from Final Fight. What was the Final Fight on NES called? Mighty Final Fight or something like that. That's where the music for the menu is from. It claims 168 in 1. I believe that's fairly accurate. I don't think there is a lot of repeats, but there is a lot of like homebrew games or hacks that you might not necessarily want. But I mean, it's got Ninja Turtles, it's got Contra, it's got Jackie Chan, Adventure Island, it's got all 3 Super Mario games. It's got Mega Man 3, oddly enough, as we just saw, Dr. Mario. I'm going to load up Super Mario Brothers 2 or 3. I'll go 3. And as you can see, I mean, the screen is passable at best. I mean, again, this thing was $25. We don't expect that it's going to have the nicest screen on it. Try and get the camera to focus on that as best I can and not get any glare on the screen. There we go. So it actually looks decent. The colors are definitely way off. The blue in Super Mario Brothers there is like actually in the camera it looks proper. In real life it's actually a much darker blue than what you're seeing on the camera right now, oddly enough. Viewing angle does change that quite a bit. Viewing angle is one of those ones where the viewing angle is actually side to side more so than it is up and down. It's almost like the screen is mounted in there sideways. When the screen refreshes and you see tearing, it goes across the screen diagonally. You usually see that when the screen changes, like there when it goes back to the menu. I don't know if you'll pick that up in the video or not, but there is some very, very odd angled screen tearing when when the whole screen changes at once. I'm going to try and do this with one hand. Obviously, did not plan for that. That worked out quite well. So in this game, I mean, the sound is fine. For the most part, the color is okay. It's passable. Again, for $25, it's passable. The reset button will always just bring you back to the menu. I forgot to mention, the initial menu is choosing between Chinese and English. As far as I know, all the games are the same in the menu. Just the naming of the games in the order that they're in obviously goes from being in Chinese to being in English. It's not a different set of games within each sub-menu there. But anyways, I guess that's it. It's $25 and it works. Again, I kind of see it as a novelty gift. I wouldn't buy it for myself. If I were going to buy something like this, again, I would spend the $60 and get like the Bitboy with the micro SD card slot on it. But if you're just buying it to give to someone as kind of like a stocking stuffer type of thing, yeah, I mean, it works. It can give you some entertainment. Obviously, save states. There's no save states. I meant to say save states do not work. But the games that are on there, most of them run fine actually, and there's a fair bit of decent games on there. So it is what it is. It's a cheap clone, but it works.